I'm proud of you. So we are live. Hi, guys. Good evening. Good evening. Good evening. Welcome, welcome, welcome to another edition of Transformative Talk with Coach V. It is the evening edition. You know, we get together every once in a while. I'm trying to do better with that, but we get together and we just have some real conversations about some real issues. And so I'm grateful for each and every one of you that is joining us or that watches this on the replay. Please make sure that you are giving StreamYard permission so that we can see your name and your comments, because we definitely want to acknowledge you as we have this conversation on this evening. I am so super excited. It seems like it has been forever that this day has been coming, but it is finally here. That I am so honored and privileged to have my sister, fellow author, Lacole Smith, here with us. Welcome to the show. Thank you so much for taking this time to be with us on this evening. I'm going to just read a little bit of her bio, but I do want her to be able to kind of tell us about herself as well. But I just wanted to share a little bit about our guest on this evening. Lacole Smith hails from a small town, which is Ethel, Louisiana. She is a healthcare professional by day and an author by night. I like that. She believes God spared her life so she could tell her story, and she uses it to inspire and empower all who cross her path. She is the creator and founder of Motivational Talk, and I know that you all have seen her publicize that and see her lives. And if you haven't, I encourage you to go back and watch the episodes or catch her the next episode that she has. She has amazing authors on there. She has amazing guests, period. So if you definitely check her out on Motivational Talk. And she is also a co-panelist of the Motivational Talk Ladies Night. That's another panel that she's on with one of my good friends, Marquita Young, and a couple of other young ladies, and they have some phenomenal guests as well. She also interviewed, and she's also the CEO of Motivational Talk Dialogue show, where she interviews upcoming and established authors, entrepreneurs, and others who are making a difference in the community. She is the co-founder of a nonprofit, Anointed Sisters United, alongside Altina S. Stewart. Lacole is also the owner of God Sent Fashions. I didn't know this. God Sent Fashions and God Sent Vacations. I don't see how you do all of this. You more than just the author at night. You got a lot going on. But the biggest thing is that Lacole has a book out, and that's what we're going to talk about. That was released in December, and that's what we're going to talk about this evening. And this is amazing to me. When she's not writing or running her other businesses, she spends her free time with her family. She loves to read, she loves to cook, she loves to travel. Catching her favorite television shows. I like to do that too. And she is an adamant football fan who shares her love of the game with her husband and her in-house rival. I love that. Because it's like, the husband and wife are always on the they on opposite teams sometimes.
Yeah.
So I am just again, welcome, welcome, welcome. I'm so excited to have you here. It's been such a privilege just to get to know you up until this point. So I'm so proud to have you on, Lacole. Just welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It is a pleasure to be on your show and in your presence. I always look up to you, so I am honored to be on here tonight with you.
Well, I thank God for that. I thank God that we've been able to connect, and you've been an inspiration to me as well. And I think that a lot of people just don't understand. A lot of the stuff sometimes we're doing, not really knowing what the result is going to be or what it's going to look like, but we're just determined to obey God and do what we know we're supposed to do. And you find out that the people that you inspire and motivate, they're drawing strength from you. you're drawing strength from each other. So I just appreciate your journey and thank you for your encouragement and support. And I admire your strength and courage. And so I want to just jump in and talk about, tell us about your book. Let's start with that. Tell us about your book, Leaps of Faith.
Well, Leaps of Faith is basically my story of overcoming fear. Um, as
Mm,
I was writing the book, I actually realized that my fear went back all the way to kindergarten when I
wow.
first started school. You go through your day to day, you maneuver through life, and you never really think about it when you're in that moment. But
Mm,
then when God opens your eyes to the things that you had a lid on. You walk with that blindfold on and you just maneuver yourself through life.
yes.
You don't know that it was a fear that you was going through until you realize and take the blindfolds off. So as I was taking the blindfolds off, I was like, I have a bunch of stories about fear. I walked through life with scared of this and scared of that, and everything that I mostly was afraid of, it's like God put it in my presence so that I had no choice but to overcome it.
Mm,
My book is just my story going from kindergarten all the way up to my current life now, of different journeys that I had to maneuver through and use faith to overcome my fears. So that is, just all in a little nutshell. That's kind of what the story in the
wow.
is.
And fear is such a big thing for so many people, myself included. So I think it's so important. I love how are looking back and seeing where that started, and walking that forward to see like how it impacted you, as a teenager, as a young adult. How fear can really be crippling, and we don't oftentimes address it or really talk about it. And for some people it shows up in different ways that makes them very afraid, and they don't do anything, or you become really angry because you're trying to cover up that insecurity or that fear. Was there like a critical moment or something that happened that really made you realize, like, as an adult, you know what, I need to start really dealing with this fear?
Well, actually, it was in 2011. I was in an accident. I got hit by two 18-wheelers. One hit me from behind, and the other one hit me head on. And
Wow.
I remember um, looking in the rearview mirror and seeing that the truck about to hit me, and all I could do is say, "Lord, protect me," or "Lord, shield me," And I grabbed the steering wheel as he plowed into the back of the truck, forgetting that the other truck was coming while I was stopped there in the first place because I was waiting for the other truck to pass. So this truck pushes me down the road, only for the other one to hit me and push me back up the road on
Oh
the other.
my God.
And I never lost conscious. I knew everything that was going on, but in that moment, I realized that all the stories that my father and my mother had told, that you got to have faith, you got to trust God, you got to stand on his word. My father's a preacher, so I heard it over and over again, and in church, and we went from this church to that church, and sometimes three churches in one Sunday.
Mhm.
At that moment, I felt the shift. you know I knew in that moment, because if you look at the automobile, the driver's door was the only thing on the vehicle that was not damaged at all.
Oh,
Everything else was bent up, folded up, twisted up. Looked like somebody had put me in one of those things that smash the cars up and kind of ball it up.
yeah.
But the driver's door and the driver's side, even the driver's windshield was not cracked. So when I looked at that automobile after the accident, and they was telling me you're not gonna walk, you might have internal injuries, but my faith let me knew in that moment that God kept me here for a reason. So that was when my shift came, and I knew that something was happening. I
Yeah.
didn't exactly know what it was. I didn't know how to embrace it at that moment, but I felt that shift at that time, and it was 3 days later before they even found a fracture in my back.
Oh,
But
wow.
because the swelling had to go down, I had
Yeah.
bruises and swelling everywhere. But in that moment, I was calm when they checked my pressure. It was 120 over 70. So it was nothing but God all over that accident.
Absolutely.
Moving forward, I was like, if you can bring me through that, it's nothing that I can face ever that you can't bring me out of. So it was in that moment that, it was just like surreal, you know.
Mm, yeah. Wow. And I didn't know all of that. Um, wow. And it's amazing, when you think, because I'm always interested to hear people's, what was that shift? Like, what was that thing that happened that really causes that shift or that change in mindset or perspective? And it's always amazing to me, and I guess I don't know how I really want to say it. I think it's amazing. It's always something that is just, it can be very life threatening, or just, you're really in a position like, the alternative is really just not good. And it's like, if you don't turn at that point, I guess that's why I just sometimes, when you see, when we talk to people and encourage people, about changing their life or turning their life around, or doing something different, and we're not talking about what we heard, we're talking about what we know from a firsthand experience. And I think that's why, in what we do, it's so hard when you see people continue to make these decisions and choices to like live their life for themselves, because who wouldn't serve a God like that a car, with the exception of your car door and that part of the windshield, is not damaged, but everything else is basically total, but your car door, only God could do that. Only a God that we serve and that loves us the way that he loves us could make something be like that. So who would not just make this decision to just change their life and
Yep.
do something radically different, and be able to share this story and tell this story? And so I think that that's just powerful within itself. And I'm sure that every person, that if they really took the time to look back at their life, there's been something that has happened where God has truly spared your life, that it wasn't, luck or anything like that. It was God's hand. It was his mercy at that point, his grace and his mercy, because he still has yet something for you to do. And if you can't stop and recognize that, that's just, for me, it's just disheartening, when you see others that you share this great story, and it's like, you know, you're just, for me, like, it continues to put me in awe of God, and just how powerful and how amazing he is. And he knows every moment. He knew before we were born, before we were created in our mother's womb, that this moment was going to be, that we were going to talk about this, and you were going to get to share this story. He already knew that. And so it's just amazing how life just unfolds itself, and then, to put you in a place that you now share the story with others to help them overcome their fear, to, take the time to examine themselves, look back, where did this start, what was the trigger? And I find a lot of times those are things that we don't deal with,
Mm-hmm.
because it's not talked about. And I like what you said, earlier about, you grew up in church, your father's, was a pastor. So this is what you heard all the time. And it just goes to show, like, even though we may grow up in church and we know that we know that we know,
Mm-hmm.
but that fear is just as real, to us as the faith that we're taught.
Yeah.
So it's amazing. I just love just the how that switches from living such a life of fear to these leaps of faith. What made you choose that title for the book?
It was something that was basically kind of dropped in my spirit because I actually wanted to name it something else.
Wow.
um, I kept toying with it and toying with it, and I was like, I wanted to say something about faith, and leaps just kept popping in my head. I was
Yeah.
like, I, I'm like, I've been on Google and I've been on Amazon, and I see people got leaps of faith without the S, and I was like, that's too close to their title, and this is about my journey, and I wanted to stand out. I wanted to be different, and I was like, well, I'm gonna name it, I think it was like Faith Jumpers or something like that. And I was like, that sounds kind of crazy. And um, Leafs just kept coming into my head, Leafs,
Yeah.
Leafs. And I actually, my book has a cross on it, and I actually saw the word leaps in a hump over the cross. So um, I was like, well, that's cute. I didn't put that as the cover of the book, but I was like, that, maybe I should go with that. And I was like, well, I can add something to it because it can't just be called Leaps of Faith because it's too similar. If you Google it, it's gonna kind of be like that, and it might pull up the wrong person. You might order the wrong book.
Mhm. Look, I need you to get my book.
You know what I mean? So what am and then I had to say, okay, so what am I really gonna talk about? I'm talking about my faith. I'm talking about that, but what else is going with it? And that's when I was like, my story of overcoming fear. And I was like, that's perfect. That's absolutely perfect. My
Mhm.
story of overcoming fear because, you know, each episode that I had to go through, I had to use faith to overcome the fear. So it wasn't just one time, it was many times,
Yes.
many leaps. So that's why leaps always came to me with the S on it. So I was like, okay, Lord, I'm going to be obedient, because I'm already 7 years behind writing the book because he told me 7 years ago that I
Oh,
needed to do the
wow.
book. And I was afraid to write the book because I was like, nobody's going to want to hear my story. Nobody's going to want to listen to what I have to say. I got to come up with something, big and bold. And, I was looking at doing romance novels or something like that because I'm very creative
Really?
with some of this stuff. And, he kept telling me I have to talk about my faith.
Mhm.
So I was like, okay, you know, it was a couple of things that happened in my life that I discussed in the book, and we can discuss it on here if you like. But that just made me say, well, Lord, I'm surrendering. I'm giving up. I'm gonna write this book. I don't care if
Yeah,
one person read it or if one person buy it and it, excuse me, and it helps that person. Then I've done what you wanted me to do. So
absolutely.
I had to just surrender to him, just give it all over to him. And I'm glad that I did.
I'm glad you did too. Because what caught my eye, I have to say, when I first saw the title of your book, it was like I understood what you meant, because what I think people don't we may not always remember in the midst of it is it's 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 never just a leap of faith. It's in everything that we do. It's a continuous process of stepping out, and then it's stepping out on top of stepping out on top of stepping out, because this challenge is like, one of me and my close friends, we always say it's always like seasons within a season. So you are taking these several leaps of faith, because it's like I'm already being tested and tried, and I'm stepping out over here, but now I got to take another step outside of that. So it's like literally you keep taking these steps, you just keep walking, you just keep putting one foot in front of the other, and you don't have a choice but to keep taking these leaps of faith. And so when I saw the title, like it just resonated. I mean, I understood it. We've never even had a conversation about why you called your book that, but I understood it because it does require, it's just a constant thing. It's not, you take this step and that's done.
Yes.
You have to constantly just continue to, because you're always being pushed, you're always being pressed, and just when you think it's enough, there's something else. I see Latanya says the stories in her book do illustrate how she exponentially spiritually matured through her extremely difficult life experiences. Each experience required a leap. She said the book is so good and real. Thank you, Latanya, for
Thank
sharing
you,
that.
Tanya. Nice. I'm
Yeah,
glad to have you
so
on.
I love that. And people, and that's one thing I love what you said earlier, because I know when I was writing my book, um, you get into this mindset of, who wants to hear my story? Who's going to read this? What do I have to say that's any different than somebody else? Like you start to talk really, really negatively about it. But the fact of the matter is, the other key thing that you said is God gave you this like 7 years ago. So if he gives you the vision, there's a reason for it. There's something that he wants you to deposit here in the earth. And so we forget that, and we get in our emotions about it, when we start overthinking it. And the fact of the matter is, if it's just, one person that reads it and it changes their life, then I fulfilled my assignment. To not have done it would have been the thing that would have been a shame. So, you do get to a point that it's like, okay, you know what? I know I'm being disobedient. I should have done this a long time ago. Because don't you feel a release now that obeyed and followed that instruction and followed it through? It's a different feeling that you have when you know that you did what you were supposed to do. And it's amazing how fear will even overtake us in things that we know that we're called to do, that we're meant to do, that we're supposed to do. Um, Now, I know that you talked about the fact that you knew this was something that God gave you a long time ago to fulfill and to write. But why do you think that now was the time? What made you feel really solid and certain that now was the time to tell your story and write this book?
Well, I think it was more so like, I'm gonna say year before last, it was like one thing after another, after another, after another. A test, a test, a test,
Mm,
for the testimony to come out, and every test that I had a phenomenal testimony to go along with it. So it was like, you know what? I think you're whooping me for not being obedient, because that's how I felt in that moment. Um,
yes.
so I just started writing, and when I first started, it was all over the place. It was
Mm,
like chapter 8 and chapter 2, and it was all over the place.
yeah.
Nothing was consistent, because I was writing in the moment of how I felt. You know,
Right.
if I thought about, one of the things I talk about is when my mom passed. So if I
Mhm.
was thinking about that, I kind of started writing on that, and then I would stop and I would jump over here to, dealing with um, not having breast cancer, but having to take medicine because I need to prevent having breast cancer. And I'm still considered being a cancer patient, even though I'm not a cancer, I don't have cancer, but I
Right.
still have to take medicine to keep me from having breast cancer because of my numbers. And it was like attack after attack after attack. And I just was like, okay, I feel like, when you're in church, I was like, I went back to church when they tell you, if you know better, he whoop you with a lot of stripes. But if you
That's
don't know, he whoop you with a few. And I just felt at that time I can't take any more strikes. So I'm gonna just go ahead and be
right.
obedient. And I made, this my motto. I'm gonna walk in obedience. And that's my motto that I took from that moment when I started writing. And that's my motto still today. I'm gonna walk in obedience. I'm not looking
Absolutely.
back, I've overcame the fear of writing and not feeling like it was gonna mean anything. So I've overcome that fear. So now it's like, okay, God, whatever you got for me, I know I can do, because this
Mhm.
is my biggest fears, that nobody would want to read what I had. And a lot of people were pre-ordering the book. So people want to hear the story.
Absolutely.
It's like even when that going out, it was like the devil was attacking. It was like, okay, it's supposed to come out on this date, and I missed this date. And I was like, okay, it's supposed to come out over here, and I was missing that. And then they had all this stuff which you couldn't get your stuff shipped to you. So it was like the devil was trying his best to stop the process. And God was like, I am who I say I am, and it
That's
will happen. So I just had to walk in obedience, and I'm just grateful, and I'm glad that I decided to listen and walk in obedience.
right.
So
Yeah.
it's amazing how you feel when you do what God asks you to do.
Absolutely. Did you feel like, um, because I heard you say, when you were writing, you were just kind of all over the place, and I get it because, and I'm sure everybody is different in their writing style. Or normally I just, when people ask me, I'm just like, you just write. Like it doesn't have to um make sense. Just get it on paper. You can figure it out later on, but you don't want to miss, what's being shared. Did it feel like therapy for you as you were writing?
It did. And Latanya, who is actually on tonight, when she was going back and she was editing, she was
Mhm.
like, you kind of you started out as if you're writing it now, but then somewhere in the midst of it, she say I actually went back to that place and I started talking like I was in that moment. So I was like, I didn't even see that when I was writing, but it was a relief. It was like a
Yeah,
exhale.
yeah,
Like, okay, I finally
yeah.
got this off of my heart. I finally got this off of my plate. And now the plate is washed up and it's clean and I can put it away and move on to the next plate.
That's good. That's good. Yeah, I got chills when you said that because it's amazing. It's amazing, like because people, when they read it, they'll see or hear things that we don't, because it's our experience. So we have a different perspective in reading
Exactly.
it. And like for me, it was different. It was one layer to write it, but then when it was, during the editing process, and I go back and read it, like it's another experience. So it's like another layer of healing. So sometimes, when people would, a friend of mine, she was reading the book and she pulled it out and she was reading something from the book, and I said, who wrote that? And she was like, you did. I was like, what? Because you just don't see it like that. You don't, you just don't. And so it's like, when people can pick up, like they can pick up the process. It's like where you are and you're tracing your steps backwards. That's when it resonates with people. That's how that what you have to say is important, and
Yes.
it needs to be deposited because it's going to make sense to who it's supposed to connect with. And so and we know that only God can do that, like write it in a way that when the person reads it, those words leap off of the page and they make sense to that person, and they can relate to the experience.
Yes.
And they feel like, y'all were walking this same road all together all along. And that is an amazing thing to be able to have those encounters and those connections with people, because then people are reminded they're not by themselves. You might not have the same experiences, but we can definitely relate. Everybody can relate to fear. Everybody can relate to having an experience somewhere in their past or even maybe currently where fear has gripped them. Writing this book, I'm sure for you, like it was for me, was very scary. But like you said, now that it's done, I feel like I can write anything at this point because I got the hardest thing out of the way. So then it's like, okay, well, that's checked off. I'm not afraid of that anymore. And it's amazing how, something for some people it may seem really simple. Well,
Mhm.
just right, like, unless you do it, and it's not taken away from anybody. It's unless you actually, until you do it, it's very frightening, because it's like you're sharing your story, so then you're worried about what people are going to think, or what they're going to say, or what they may think about you, or all of those things. And you want to express it in a way that people really understand, because I want you to take my life and learn from it, and not let fear be something that you continue to live in, but you continue to take these leaps of faith into your destiny. And so I think that's really, really powerful in the way that you share the stories. I know will resonate with those that read it. Um, what do you tell me? What is Tell me something that you learned about yourself as you wrote this book, through this process. What was something that you learned about yourself?
Well, the main thing that I learned was that I'm stronger than I thought I was. Um,
Yes.
and I realized when I was going back and reading over the things that I had overcome, that I was very strong in that moment, because it didn't even look like fear in that moment.
Yeah.
But as you look back on it, and you're going through and you like, I really was scared of this. I really, I was uncomfortable in that situation, or, you know, I can't believe I made it through, different
Mhm.
challenges in our lives. We go through all of these screen, it's just like kind of like crossing the Mississippi River for the first time on the ferry.
Yes.
The first time I took a ferry ride, I was terrified. But once I made it to the other side and I knew that you can make it, I used to go on the ferry just for fun because it was relaxing and refreshing. But I was
Yes.
terrified to get on all of that big body of water.
Yes.
So, getting your story out there and going through everything and dealing with it for the first time in public is frightening.
Yes.
But once it's done and you had the opportunity to tell your story the correct way
Yes.
versus somebody else telling it and it's not true, it's
Exactly.
so refreshing and calming.
Yes.
So even if you have something that, hey, Vicky did XYZ, well, guess what? They can read about it in the book because I probably have it in there. So I was able to tell my story and give my truth without somebody else doing it. And that is very relaxing.
Exactly. And like you said, nobody can tell your story better than you, because another person may be able to tell it, but they might have left out something, or there's something they didn't know about. So when they think that they're telling your story, oh, did they tell you this part? So nobody, it's like a power that you take back. And that
Yeah.
thing that had you so, so crippled in
Exactly.
fear, now you have power over it, and you can tell the story from a place of victory. It's not you, it's you can speak of it from a perspective as having overcome it. And fear is Latanya said fear is a universal experience, and it absolutely is. I want to say hey to Laverne for joining us. Hey, Laverne.
Hey, Laverne.
And who is this? Hey, Porch Time with Mrs. McKinney. Hello. I'm sorry I didn't see your
Uh-huh.
message earlier, but I just wanted to say hello. Fear is definitely universal, and I don't think it matters what it is, but we've all experienced it, and I think it's something that I don't care who you are. You can be the best of whoever. We all experience that fear and that insecurity in some fashion. So being able to step out and just really trust God in the process helps you to overcome it. And it doesn't mean that you won't experience it again. It just means that, I've had the experience and I know what it takes. And so I know what to do in those moments
Yeah.
when I become fearful or I start to question and doubt. I know that I can do it because I've been able to, overcome it before. And so now, I'm stronger. I know what it looks like. I know how the enemy may try to attack me. I know the lies that he may try to seed in my mind, but I know that greater is he that is in me than is he that is in the world. So, hey, let's go and get this thing done. And we sometimes, I think because we have that little seed of fear, we make it so big, and we make things sometimes so hard, and like it's impossible to accomplish some things, and we find out it's really not that hard at all.
Yeah, that's
because that
right.
fear can make you afraid to reach out to people or to
Yeah.
connect to people that can help you. You know, it'll make you really withdraw from making those relationships and those connections. It is so it's amazing what a that four-letter word can do. You
Yes.
know, it's so amazing what that can do. Um, what do you hope that the reader takes away when they read your book?
Well, I hope they take away an understanding of the fact that God really stands on his word.
Mm,
The Bible tells you, ask and it shall be given. Seek and ye shall find, knock and the door shall be open.
yes,
So I want them to take in that moment that if I ask God for it, he will provide it because it didn't say he might. It said ask and it shall. That
that's
means
right.
it's already done. It's done before you even ask. So you have to know that whatever it is that he's bringing you to or bringing you through or taking you into, because sometimes you're not even there yet. When he get ready to take you into it, that he's already in the presence of it. He's
Come
already
on,
that came through and made the provision. You just have to go through the journey because he's already paved the road for it. You just got to drive down that highway and fulfill the destiny that he's already put in place.
that's
So
right.
I want them to take away the fact that no matter whatever's going on in their life, God is going to fix it. You just have to be obedient and pray for and trust. You know, have that
Absolutely.
have that demeanor that you know everything is going to be well, no matter how hard it is on this side. He already has something prepared for you 2 steps ahead because he's always. So that's what I want them to take away from the book.
I love that. And my hope is um my hope and prayer is that for especially for women, especially for us that wear so many hats, that do so many things, that we are so many things to so many people. Hey Marquita, um my hope is that we as women will invest in ourselves more, that is something that we'll start to do in this year, because I mean I know it's something that I'm trying to do more of this year. It's more than going to get your nails done or going to get your hair done. Like that's all fine, well and good, but be honest, when you in the shop getting your hair done, you trying to figure out how much longer you got to sit here, you know, because you got other things to do. But my hope is that we will invest in ourselves more in the sense of, you know, getting good books like Leaps of Faith, and really investing in, you know, the stories of other women to help us empower ourselves and inspire and encourage ourselves to keep fighting, to keep pushing,
Yeah.
to keep going, like keep showing up and keep doing the work. And I think, you know, when we write these books and share our story, that's a foundation that somebody else can stand on, because I know there's somebody that we probably read that helped us to get to that point to say, you know what, I'm gonna be bold and courageous and I'm gonna share my story. And that's the point, that's the whole point, is, you know, we show up so that others feel comfortable to do the same thing. And so my hope is that, you know, we will, you know, stand in really caring for ourselves and supporting one another as we share our stories, as we stand up and speak our truth, you know, as we have, you know, events to empower women and encourage women. um my friend Juliet said, not in my salon, we have church. I have to she said she have to put them out sometimes, and I know she is not lying. And it's true, we have to be, you know, we gotta be we got to be more intentional about that. And I hope that as they see our faces on social media or when you do motivational talk, you know, when, you know, that they will see that, you know, we're not doing this because we don't have anything else better to do. There's a mission and a vision that God has given us. This is our ministry. You know, this is Vicky's ministry. This is my ministry. I know for my sister Juliet, that's her ministry when she's behind that chair. Marquita. I mean, just this is our ministry, and this is not always a comfortable place for us, but we know that it's necessary. And so even when you do go to the salon, when you go and let Miss Julia do your hair, yeah, it's self-care because you're gonna get a good word when you sitting in that chair. You're gonna get yourself together. So I hope that we as women will invest in ourselves in, really doing the work, because we hopefully through the stories that we share, they see what that process is like, and the fact that you have the support, that they can reach out to you, Vicky, and get that encouragement, get that wisdom because you've walked that path, and you've laid, the blueprint for them to be able to take their leaps of faith, to step out of the shadows of fear. And Julia said they're part of my Vanessa voice. That they'll see that. And so that's really the thing, for me, that I'm really adamant and passionate about in this year, because like I said, it's a journey that I'm on. And so Vicky and I were talking about before we got on the live, that I'm very much an introverted person, but I'm trying my best this year to kind of step out and do some things and go places and really sow into myself in a different way. And she was teasing me and saying, well, he just got you all over the place, and he does, and I'm grateful. It's uncomfortable, but I'm comfortable with that. And so I hope that other women will see it's possible for them. And this is just the beginning for you. I'm so incredibly proud of you for taking this huge leap and several leaps of faith. Um,
Thank
and for you to tell your story, to be so bold and unapologetic, in telling your story. I'm just really proud of you for not, being so concerned with what other people think or what they have to say, but know that your story is of great importance and that it is going to help people. It's going to definitely change people's lives. I want you to share with, everybody how they can connect with you. I want you to tell them about your book signing on Saturday. I know you also have an event coming up in April. So I want you to share about all of those exciting things.
Okay, on Facebook you can find me as Vicky Smith. I have an author page which is author Lacole Smith. I have Motivational Talk, which is a all women's group. Um, and then I have Motivational Talk Dialogues, which is my show page. And that's where I interview everyone. And um, I've had the wonderful and beautiful Vanessa on there before, and our roles were reversed. So um, you just have to get out there. I'm on Instagram, which I need to be on more. But you can find me on there under author Lacole Smith. Uh, God Sent Fashions. I have that one on Instagram, and I have Motivational Talk Dialogues on Instagram and on YouTube. So I want to say I covered everything. I'm actually trying to branch out some more. And if you want to catch me in Vanessa's role, you can tune in at 7 o'clock tonight because I'm gonna be interviewing a lady from New York. She's an author, and I'll be interviewing her tonight on Motivational Talk Dialogue show. So my website is Author Lacole Smith, so you can reach me there. I think I covered everything. If I missed something,
Book signing is
oh, the book signing is Saturday at 2:30, 9800 Airline Highway, and April the 22nd, we will have Walking in Faith Women's Workshop. It's going to be a workshop for women, and Vanessa is actually the guest speaker on that as well. So I think I covered everything.
I
I think
think
I
so.
covered
Yeah. Look, I'm
everything.
running through it in my mind. I was like, did she cover? Yeah, she covered everything. And Latanya has been good. She posted, she's put your website where you can order your books. Laverne said, she said, is we as women give so much to others. And that is definitely, it's definitely time to start investing in ourselves and building one another up. She said, both of you have awesome books that empower. This is powerful. I love you both. We love you too, Laverne. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. We definitely need to learn. I think it's just time. The more that we stand up and we make our voices be heard, I know that it may not necessarily always be popular, but I think it's absolutely necessary that we stand up and speak in this united voice. There are far more many of us than there are of the negative, and we see enough negative in the world, and we see enough that cause people to be fearful, cause them to feel insecure, cause them to feel like they're not good enough, that they're not important, that their story is not important, cause them to, deal with imposter syndrome and all of that kind of stuff. There's enough of that going on. And I think the more of us that speak up, that stand up and speak up and say, hey, I deal with that too. That was once me. The more that we can do that, the more that we're able to debunk those myths, the more that we're able to get the message out there and help people to stand up and truly and live in their truth, and just say, hey, that's how it was. That was me. Because how many of us have spent our time, pretending like everything was okay?
Yes.
And being and letting that fear keep you, kind of in that box. And so stories like yours that continue to just tell the truth and shed light in that dark place on that, I think it's definitely going to add more power and have far more impact and influence here in the earth. And that's definitely what we need. Sometimes we spend so much time, chasing after the big names and going to this, and there's nothing wrong with that. I'm not begrudging any of those things. But get connected with women and groups that are really doing things to empower women. They don't have to have big names attached. We don't have to always, I know that those things are great and they have their place, but there are also some very awesome, powerful women that you probably scroll past every day on your social media that are
Yes.
doing great things right here in the state of Louisiana. The anointing is not just in Texas, it's not just in Florida, it's not just in California or New York. There are some powerful, powerful women that I have met here in Louisiana that are doing awesome things, and there are great things that they desire to do for the body of Christ. And so, my hope is that we will continue to just be that light and encourage each other and uplift each other. I think Vicky and I have been following each other for a long time and liking each other's stuff and following, and so she came to my book signing and it just touched my heart because you never know like who's watching you or what impact it's having, and they just don't know you doing this flat foot afraid, but you're doing it. So I definitely am excited to support her in her book coming out. I know it's just the beginning of many more books. I see so many things in your future on top of what you already are doing. And I'm so excited to see what the future looks like for you. I'm excited to, be a part of your event in April. And just anything that, I can do to be of support to you, you got it. I'm super proud of you and you using your voice in this time and in your season. And I see God just doing so many more amazing things, not only for you, but through you.
Amen.
You've been battle tested and tried, and you've got a great story to tell. Um, and I can't wait for people to get your book. I mean, just,
Yeah.
Vicky sharing her story with me prior to us getting on this call, I still got chills running up and down my body just in the story that you share. And you can share it if you want to before we get off. I'm still just getting chills. I was telling her I understood why she, when I saw the title of her book, it definitely resonated with me, and I understood it, not even knowing just a piece of her story. But if you want to share it, please feel free.
Well, if we were talking about what made me make the shift, and that story was, as I was saying, I think earlier, when I got hit by two 18-wheelers, and just to look up in your rearview mirror and see that a 18-wheeler, not a regular car, but an 18-wheeler is about to hit you, and you brace and you just ask God to shield and protect you. And I grabbed the steering wheel and I held on to it, and in the impact, I forgot about the other 18-wheeler that's coming up the road in the
Mhm.
opposite. So this one pushed me down the street and kind of turned me sideways, and I got hit kind of front side by the second 18-wheeler. So as it's pushing me back down the road in the opposite direction again, all you can do is, you know, trust God and just, like that fear of, and I'm terrified of 18-wheelers at that time. Now I still don't care for them all that much, but I deal with them.
Mhm.
I can deal with them better because, I was like, okay, if he brought me through that, if anything happens, I know that he's going to bring me through and it'll be fine. But, you know, I had a cup of water, and I was sharing this with some of my friends, and I was like, I had a cup of water in the cup holder. So when I got hit, the water splashed on me. So you instantly think you have blood everywhere because
Mhm.
my adrenaline was high. So it didn't even feel cool. It had ice in it. It didn't even feel like the cold water splashing on my face. I instantly thought that it was blood. So I'm
Mhm.
feeling, I'm like, oh my God, I'm bleeding everywhere. And the only cut that you can literally see was the piece of glass that stuck in my finger and cut my finger.
Wow. That
So that was the only blood that you can see that was on me. Everything else you could not see. I did, the seatbelt ripped into my hip, so I had scar tissue issues, and I still have the scar tissue. It ripped into my chest, which allowed them to find the tumor that I had in my breast that I was able to get removed. That was benign. Um, my back was fractured in two separate directions, and it was a hairline fracture from me being paralyzed. And they told me I could not bend, I could not sneeze, I could not do anything rapid, no fast twists, no fast turns. I had to wear a brace all the time. They wanted me on bed rest because anything that I did wrong in that moment could have paralyzed me.
mm. Mm.
So I
Lord.
know that it was God. They wanted to fuse my back, and I refused to get it fused because I know in my heart that God was going to heal my back and I was going to be able to walk the way I needed to walk and be okay, which I'm totally fine now. And I'm glad I went with my gut and I didn't do that because it would have limited my mobility.
Yes.
So I just know that shift was necessary. You know, I'm not saying that I'm perfect. I'm not saying that I'm the best person that I can be because there's still room for growth. There's still room for more testimonies to be told. But what I can say is in that shift, the faith that my parents had, that they prayed for us to have, and I know everybody's parents pray for their children, the faith that they were carrying, it poured into me that day because
Yes.
I could feel the atmosphere on that day shift to let me know that I've heard the stories of everybody else, but I never experienced anything the way I experienced.
Mm.
I can feel the presence of God protecting me. And as I was telling Vanessa, the driver's door and the windshield on the driver's side, was not cracked, was not broken, was not bent.
Jesus.
So his angel put itself in the presence of me because that's the only way that was able to happen and shielded me during the ordeal. And I came out on the other side, not only renewed and refreshed, but shifted in my faith and in my strength and in the things that I knew God had prepared for me for future. So
Mm,
that's one of the testimonies that I have, and that's not even everything that goes with that story, but that's the bulk of that story.
yeah. Whoo, I just got chills. Just, I mean, if and I we were when Vicky and I were talking before we went live, I told her I don't see how people live without God. Like when you hear that story, and I'm sure everybody has a story. It may not be like that, but we all have a story that should make us think like, who wouldn't serve a God that would spare us? Who would have thought you having that horrific car accident would lead to them finding that lump in your breast? You know,
Exactly.
it's God is so strategic and intentional with
Yes,
everything that happens, even in the midst of tragedy, even in the most painful, hurtful, most devastating thing. His purpose is being birthed. You
mm-hmm.
know, his assignment is starting to come, you know, to mind for us. The things that we've read about in the Bible and what we've heard in church and all of these things, like it's starting to manifest itself in our lives. And it is amazing how he brings all of that, and it culminates in you writing this book and how you share your story and how you afford others a platform to tell their stories.
Yes,
You know, and so I know that God is going to have so many more amazing things because of your obedience, because of your sacrifice and your willingness and your honesty and your transparent. I know that God is definitely absolutely well pleased with you, Vicky. And I just know the best is yet to come. And this is just a portion of what he has for you, just in this season of your life. This is your time, and this is your season. And so I'm grateful that you are walking in obedience, and being willing to share the story and just take the stigma and the sting away from what the enemy tried to, you know, literally kill, steal, and destroy. Uh,
amen.
but God definitely had a bigger and better plan for it. And now, you know, you get to boast and brag, you know, and if you meet Vicky, like you, there's no residue. You would never know unless you hear her tell the story. You know, she doesn't walk funny and all. I mean, you would never know any of those, none of that when you meet her and when you see her. And people never know the story behind, you know, some of the things. They see the smiles, and you know, I tell people all the time, y'all see us post and smile and all that stuff on social media, like y'all have no idea,
Yes,
you know, what has happened behind the scenes to get to that. We might not even feel like smiling that day or posting, you know, but we know that the assignment is far greater. So I just thank you for spending time with me on today, because I know that you have a interview and I want to give you time to be able to prepare for
yes,
that. I just thank you for joining me on today, and we definitely have to do this again and
yes,
talk about some things, just more, you know, in depth, especially when it comes to fear, because I think that's it's very, very important. And it can, you know, paralyze. And so we'll have to get back together and maybe just talk about that just a little more, and just maybe give people some nuggets to walk away with, and how to, you know, overcome and work through fear. That's what we're going to do. We're going to talk about how to work through that. So we'll definitely talk about that, and get that together. I thank everybody that was able to get on. Please like this. Please share it with others. Watch the replay. I thank you all for joining us for another episode of Transformative Talk with Coach V, the evening edition. If you have questions or comments, send me an email at info@vanessaogreen.com. If you have topics that you would like to hear discussed or people that maybe you would like to see on here, let me know, because we want to have these conversations. They're very real, honest conversations. We don't, try to do the pretty all the time. If you've watched this before, what you see is what you get. So I would love to know what you would like to hear discussed. But until next time, you know what I always say, keep showing up. Keep doing your work. I'm amazingly, amazingly proud of each and every one of you. Remember, today is a great day to be made new. We'll see you guys again soon. And I hope that you all have a great evening. We'll talk to you soon. Thanks again so much, Vicki.
And thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
It's been a pleasure. Thanks, you guys, for joining us. We'll talk again soon. Bye
All
bye.
right. Have a great night.